to say that the Alien franchise hasn't exactly gone from strength to strength over the years. Yeah, it opened strong with one of the greatest horror movies of all time, followed by an action-packed sequel that retained the tension and horror while upping the stakes and pacing. Then it all started to go downhill with a grim, mean-spirited third installment that spoiled everyone's fun, and a weird, tacky, cash-grab fourth movie that we don't talk about now. After trying and failing twice to cross over with the Predator franchise, we were subjected to a pair of overblown, overhyped prequels that tried to answer questions nobody wanted to ask, and proved that film directors don't always get better with age. And honestly, that really felt like the end. Every possible avenue had been explored, every permutation of the original concept had been tried, and the poor old xenomorphs had finally been defeated by the one enemy that even they couldn't overcome: corporate greed. But hey, when you're a creatively and morally bankrupt studio that's paid an obscene amount of money for 20th Century Fox and all the IPs under their banner, you're gonna find a way to dig just a little deeper. Which brings me neatly along to Alien Romulus. Ditching the pretentious, high-minded philosophy of the Prometheus movies, the trailers instead promised a more stripped-down, back-to-basics approach to the Alien franchise. A smaller budget, practical effects,
which I do think was the better way to go. Just keep it straight. Keep it relatively simple. That they did well. Don't try to do this whole lore building scenario like Prometheus and Covenant we're doing. Really no need for that. Let's get back to the basics and just try to get people reinvested in the franchise, I guess.
And a return to the retro-futuristic production design of the earlier movies. So far so good, but does it actually deliver? Well, watching Alien Prometheus feels like two very different movies awkwardly bolted together. The first one is a tight, well-paced sci-fi thriller with a simple premise, great production design, a small cast of characters, an intriguing mystery, and some excellent performances by talented actors. In short, it's a simple but effective foundation for what could have been a decent Alien movie. The problems begin when setup has to give way to execution, and the tension gets squandered by the predictable horror tropes of dumb characters making.
There was actually, I had to say this real quick before I forgot. There was also this point when I was watching it. It kind of happened towards the that scene when they're walking through the hallway. I feel like the trailer could have even been a little bit different, where it could have done it in a way where you didn't know it was even an Alien movie, because there's a portion of this where you wouldn't know, except for like the very beginning. It shows you like, yeah, this is Aliens, but if they didn't have that in there, it feels like it could be something else. And then if an alien shows up or a xenomorph shows up, you're like, oh shoot, this is an Alien movie. I feel like there's a different way they could have gone at this, where they could have called it something else, and it could have been more of a reveal or a surprise that this is actually a secret Alien movie. That would have been cool, but they didn't go that route.
In dumb decisions, protracted chase scenes, shameless key jangling, and repurposed dialogue. And by the end, all sense of logic and consequences goes completely out the window, and the film devolves into mindless action and goofy attempts at body horror. Now, I suspect I'm going to take a lot of flack for saying this, because for some reason, everyone fucking loves this movie, but what the hell? I am become Drinker, the destroyer of dreams. Anyway, grab your pulse rifle and motion tracker and let's begin, shall we? So Romulus is set about 20 years after the events of the original Alien, and it kicks off with a Weyland-Yutani ship recovering the original xenomorph from the wreckage of the Nostromo. Now, I'm pretty sure that the Nostromo was vaporized by not one, but 3 thermonuclear explosions.
Yeah, didn't that happen? Nuke number 1.
And the xenomorph was blasted out into space from Ripley's escape pod, so the chances of actually finding it 2 decades later are about equal to finding an attractive woman at a Warhammer convention. But man, it sure is cool to see stuff from the original movie, am I right? Keep that little writing philosophy in mind, because it'll be important later. Anyway, the real action picks up with our main character, Rain, who works as a laborer on a mining planet run by the company. She lives with a decommissioned android named Andy, who acts as a kind of adopted brother for her. Anyway, she's not exactly thrilled to be trapped on a planet where it's dark 24 hours a day and the life expectancy hovers somewhere around medieval Europe. Honestly, love, try living in Scotland. It seems like a picnic by comparison. But when her contract gets extended due to labor shortages, it's pretty obvious that the company is never actually going to let her leave. That's when she's contacted by her ex-boyfriend Tyler with news that a derelict space station has been detected orbiting the planet. Tyler and his crew plan to head up there in a cargo hauler, steal some cryopods, and use them to travel to a much nicer planet a few light years away. The catch is that they need Andy's help because he's the only one who can interface with the station's computer. Before you can ask questions like, why is nobody else investigating this space station? Or, wouldn't Weyland-Yutani have sent out their own recovery team for it? Rain and the others are on their way. They make it on board and discover that the station isn't derelict at all.
Also, like the fact that when they leave, there's like no one questions them about where they're going, why there's a spacecraft, headed towards, a decommissioned ship that what they think is decommissioned. That never comes up. So like the fact that they were able to freely get up there and go, that also was a little bit odd, but it was fine. Like you gotta get to the action, you gotta get to things happening relatively quickly. And that first portion of the movie does go by very quick. You meet all the characters very fast, and then they get to the ship.
In fact, it was some kind of classified research facility experimenting on the xenomorph, and well, it went about as well as you might expect. The other problem is that its orbit is decaying, so they only have a few hours to find what they need, get back to their ship, and get the hell out of there.
Yep.
Not bad. A small group of characters with a clear objective, a ticking clock, a dangerous threat to contend with, and some interpersonal tension to ratchet up the drama.
That's
Not
right.
exactly revolutionary, but a decent foundation for a neat little alien adventure. Unfortunately, this is where the script starts to go off the rails. One of the crew gets infected by a facehugger and tries to escape on the cargo hauler, but oh no, the chestburster kills her just as they're lifting off. I'm pretty sure that the whole process from facehugger to chestburster is supposed to take a couple of days, but no.
Okay, I thought I was going crazy because in the first movie, it happened so fast. Well, no, I'm sorry, in this movie, it happened so fast. In the first movie, it happens, he's down for a while, it comes off, it dies, the facehugger or whatever. Then he's eating, he's having fun, whatever they're talking, then it happens at dinner. Chestburster. This one, facehugger's on her for maybe, I don't know, in movie time, 5 minutes. Not even that, really. They escape, they get on the ship because Andy's trying to go after them and pretty much kill her or get her away from them. And then the chestburster starts happening, like immediately. So it happens so fast, which I thought was very interesting.
Now it's basically instantaneous for the sake of plot convenience. And oh no, the cargo hauler crashes into the station and causes a big explosion that pushes it off orbit and then comes to rest completely intact in a hangar on the other side of the station. Wow, that was a lucky chain of events. Lucky it didn't just tumble off into space or get completely destroyed like the dropship from Aliens. Remember that? Remember how it triggered an overload in the atmosphere processor so the characters had to find a way to escape? The writers of this script certainly do. And while I'm on that subject, that's not the only idea that they borrowed from other movies. Remember the pulse rifles? Remember Ash?
Cool.
Remember the alien hive? Remember the laser mist? Remember the black goo?
What was that black goo?
Remember the alien Skeletor, baby? Remember the fourth act stinger? Remember this line?
I prefer some artificial person myself.
Or this line?
But you have no sympathies.
Or this line?
Get away from her. You bitch.
I've heard enough of this. I'm asking you to pull the plug.
Honestly, I could
Pull the
probably
plug.
spend about
Oh
2
my
hours
God.
listing all the stuff this film shamelessly steals from other movies in the franchise, but for the sake of brevity, I'll
But it's
move
in
on.
the same
So the main
franchise.
objective now is for the gang to hike across the station, avoid the aliens, recover the cargo hauler, and escape before the whole place goes boom. Oh yeah, and Andy's been upgraded with a new operating system, so
Right.
he's like Super Andy now. But can they still trust him, or is he now a servant of the company?
Right.
What's the true purpose behind the research here, and will any of them make it out alive? Now, I don't want to go all in on the negativity right off the bat. There are things in Romulus that I really appreciated, so let's go through them first.
Yeah, definitely
The
spoilers in
cinematography,
this.
production design, props, costumes, and soundtrack are all excellent. They've successfully replicated the look and feel of the original movie,
Absolutely.
and I appreciated the opening segment on the mining colony that gives us an actual window into what it's like for normal people working on a Weyland-Yutani worlds. I like the early hints that humans are struggling with deep space colonization, hence the attempts to mix them with alien DNA to make them stronger. Yeah, the payoff doesn't make much sense when you realize the solution is to turn all of humanity into horrifyingly deformed monsters, or the fact that they already have perfect workers in the form of androids who never get tired or sick or have to
Thank
be
you.
paid, but whatever. I like the fact that this project was done on a pretty modest budget of 80 million without sacrificing quality or scope, proving that you don't need hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver a top-notch visual experience. It uses a lot of practical effects. There's some decent gore and body horror, and the production probably saved a ton of money by not hiring any big name actors.
Yes.
On that subject, the cast all do a reasonable job. I say reasonable rather than great because they're nowhere near as memorable as the crew of the Nostromo, for example, partly because the decision to cast a bunch of 20-somethings robs them of some much-needed gravitas, and partly because the script doesn't tell us a whole lot about them despite the amount of time we actually spend with them.
Yeah, I can't tell you anybody's name except the main two. Again, Rain, who's the main character of the movie, and then Andy, who's the android. Everybody else, I don't remember their names. And one was very integral, again, like I said, to the ending of the movie. Don't remember her name.
In Alien, I felt like I knew the crew pretty well within like the first 15 minutes, but by the end of Romulus, I struggled to name a single character or what their personality was like because they all have the same background, played by actors of roughly the same age. The only exception to all of this is David Johnson, who does a superb job playing two completely different versions of the same character in Andy. It's great stuff, and he really captures the innocent vulnerability of a being that's trying his best to fit in without really understanding the people around him. Kaylee Speeney is fine as Rain, I guess. She doesn't have Sigourney Weaver's intensity and charisma or Noomi Rapace's physicality, but she gets the job done without too much fuss. Rain's likable enough, and her relationship with Andy is a nice twist on the usual dynamics we see in films like this, even if it doesn't come close to the emotional impact of Ripley and Newt. The actors are fine, the director's good, and the production is excellent. The only real problem is the script, especially the third act, which throws so much ridiculous shit at you that it honestly feels like it was lifted from a completely different movie. Before you know it, characters will be flying up and down elevator shafts fighting aliens while the gravity goes haywire, or shooting a swarm of them with a pulse rifle and acting surprised when acid blood goes flying everywhere, or injecting themselves with the black goo for no reason so that they can give birth to an alien baby that instantly transforms into a 10-foot tall human xenomorph engineer hybrid for yet another climactic showdown. The script just never lets up. It doesn't know when to quit, and instead of being exhilarating, it just becomes kind of tedious and exhausting by the end. All that carefully crafted tension and world building just goes out of the window in a confusing maelstrom of what I can best describe as J.J. Abrams' brand of rapid fire stupidity. Just keep hitting the audience with more idiotic stuff that makes zero sense but looks really good, so they never have time to stop and think about it before the next dumb thing comes along. Basically, Romulus has got a strong opening, a slightly shaky middle, and a finale that screws the pooch so hard that the pooch is going to be in therapy for the rest of its natural life. It's not exactly a terrible movie, but it's definitely not great either, and what's frustrating is that all the right elements were there to deliver something so much better than what we got. And what's weird is that people seem to be going nuts over this film. It's had a huge opening weekend, and if you believe the chatter online,
made a lot of money.
It's the greatest thing since Sigourney Weaver picked up a pulse rifle. To people who think that way, I would politely suggest they go back and rewatch the first two Aliens movies, really think about how they worked, how they handle their characters and relationships, and escalate the tension and stakes while staying fairly believable, and then come back and tell me what you really think about Romulus. Somehow, I don't think you'll be quite so positive. Anyway, that's all I've got for today.
So you know what? This is what I'll say on his thoughts, at least. Let's move that back there. There we go. I think he goes a little bit too hard on the second act. Third act, he's spot on because it goes off the rails. It goes a little bit nutty. It's Fede Alvarez kind of doing his own thing, but still very much taking from Alien Resurrection for sure. That's why I said it's like those three movies: Alien, Aliens, and Alien Resurrection. Completely. It doesn't really work all that well. Like from a tension standpoint, it's fine. That's the only moment where there was a little bit of horror in my mind, or not that I was like, oh, that scared me, or oh, jump scare. There's a couple of jump scares that happen in there, but they're not as effective. One is, the other one not so much. But I don't agree with his whole little, butt hurt moment of, oh, it's stealing from other movies in the franchise. It's in the franchise, so why wouldn't it? Again, I don't think it should have done the nostalgia baiting of having, the android say the Sigourney Weaver line or the Ripley line from the second movie. Excuse me. Bringing in the android character from the first movie into this one, even though it's not from the first movie, it's just a different version of it, I guess. And that's how you get information on the Nostromo and what happened. And that this is, originally like the alien they brought is from the first movie. That was a little bit, reaching, but a lot of aspects of this movie work. Is it the greatest thing, for the Alien franchise? No, but it's a lot of fun. It's overall a good movie. Does it have its issues? Yeah, most movies do. Nothing's perfect, but I really did enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy it too. If you enjoy the Alien movies, even if you enjoy, the ones that are not as good, Resurrection isn't the best. Alien vs. Predator, those are not good. This one you'll enjoy because it feels like the first movie for sure. A little bit of the second movie, more the first, in just the feel and the tension. The horror of it, no, that's not really there for me. At least it wasn't for me. It might be there for you, but wasn't for me. So yeah, just a few of my thoughts there. But he goes a little bit off on this one. And he was saying, game over, man, game over on this. Like, no, it's a good movie. It's a fun movie. It's got issues. And that third act will kind of determine if you're going to like the movie overall or not. Like after you kind of think about it and sit, you'd be like, oh, that actually sucked. Or, or you know what? That was crazy, but I'm in for it. It's cool. Like I didn't know they were going to go there, but I'm in for it. A lot of spoilers in this, obviously. But yeah, no, that was, I thought it was good. I enjoyed my time. I feel like I got my money's worth, and I would watch it again. Maybe not in theaters necessarily again, but that's one that I do want to watch at home because I thought it was very fun. But I will say, I wish they went a different route with it. Again, like I said earlier, I wish they had gone a route more of like, this is a secret alien movie. Let's call it something totally different. But maybe people wouldn't have gone to see it, maybe because it made like 108 million over the weekend on an $80 million budget. So it's already made its money back. Maybe not from marketing and all that, but I think it's got to be like what, 2.5 times or like what your budget was, something like that. So it's doing well. People are going to see it. It's getting good word of mouth, not from Critical Drinker, but I think it's a good one. So I think you should check it out.